Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jazz. Today I wrote everything on the whiteboard and then I just felt like the full moon in Taurus and everything that's going on right now made me want to be on my couch, cozy, and just having a conversation with you guys. So that's what I'm gonna do. There is a full moon that's happening in Taurus on November 15th at 2:28 Mountain Standard Time. And it's happening exactly at 24 degrees of Taurus. This moon is asking us, am I living in alignment with my deepest values? And we're going to get into that a little bit later, but something for you to sit with. Now, this moon is going to be affecting anyone who has planets or points around 24 degrees of the fixed sign. So that's Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. Especially Taurus, of course, because it's happening in your sign, but really for all of you guys, it's happening in very foundational houses or foundational points in your chart. So I'm going to go over the astrological transits that are happening during this full moon and integrate that with the human design chart because they're very similar at this point, which I love. I love when that happens. And yet they still both offer differences. And then I did a tarot card reading, which I will also integrate into all of this, as well as at the very end, I give some practical advice. And I pulled a Rumi oracle card that has a Rumi poem and then talks a little bit about the poem, and just a beautiful way to end this video because it resonated so much with everything that I believe this full moon represents for us. So what is the moon in Taurus all about? The moon is our emotions, our unconscious, our mind in some aspects. And the moon is exalted in Taurus. It loves being in Taurus because Taurus is stable. It's earthy, it's grounded, and it's simple. It's the opposite of Scorpio, which is complex. It likes simplicity. So, and there's a warmth to it. It's ruled by Venus. So the moon likes being here because it feels grounded and it feels stable. Now, with this full moon in particular, Uranus is making sure that you don't feel comfortable, that you don't feel stable. And that's what it's meant to do. Uranus is the great awakener. And I was meditating on Uranus and I wrote down a bunch of words about it. Disruptive, shocking, breakthroughs, sometimes breakdowns to breakthrough, electrifying, chaotic, shaking things up, radical authenticity, downloads, awakening. It's the cosmic midwife, as Ren Butler says. It births us into a new way of being. It's liberation, freedom, restlessness, irritability, nervousness. So what happens when the moon and Uranus come together like they are in this full moon? Well, emotional restlessness, but also emotional liberation, emotional freedom. And there is a liveliness that is brought to our emotions. And for some of us, that may feel very chaotic. And like I said, restless and nervous. Uranus is this electrical impulse. And when it goes to the moon, it's like, oh my gosh, it just kind of jolts you awake emotionally. I feel like I'm already feeling the sun opposing Uranus because during the full moon, the moon is going to be with Uranus and the sun is going to be opposing that, right? That's what creates the full moon. And the other day, I had an event happen internally that was indicative of one of those things, like a breakdown to break through. And I just kind of went with it. And it was chaotic and it felt crazy and very electrifying. But the more that you resist it, the more that you're not going to get the downloads and the understanding and the liberation, the freedom that Uranus is trying to bring to you. So if you had seen me, you might say, oh my gosh, she's losing it. But in fact, I was not. Or was I? I don't know. So full moons are a time of culmination. And this particular one is a time of culmination from the seeds that were planted on the new moon in Taurus on May 7th of this year. So now you're seeing the results of that. You're seeing the peak of what was happening then. And from now until the next new moon, which I believe is the end of April of 2025, things are going to start waning from this event or from whatever's happening. Full moons are also a time of illumination, right? The sun is shining bright on the moon. So we're seeing something emotionally that we hadn't seen before. Secrets are revealed either from other people or secrets that we've been hiding from ourselves, right? We're making the unconscious conscious during these times. There's also always balance that's indicated for full moons because the sun is in the opposite sign. And right now is in Scorpio, which is a very complex, deep area in our lives that is also up for renewal during this time, right? Even though it's happening in the house of Taurus, it's always looking to the opposite house of Scorpio. And so we're going to see that there is balance indicated in this part of our chart, and whereas we might feel the effects of it in the Taurus part of our chart, it is also signaling and allowing us to have a renewal in the Scorpio part of our chart. Full moons are highly emotional. That's why I say they're a time for release and reflection rather than action. Wait until the moon is not 100% bright if you need to take action. And we're going to talk about this because in this, when it's a full moon, we're getting this kind of inner revolution that's provoking an outer revolution. This inner revolution of our unconscious that's provoking our conscious life to change. Let's talk a little bit about the transits that are happening. So, first and foremost, Moon conjunct Uranus and Algol. I want to read something from this book, Brady's Book of Fixed Stars, about Algol, so you can understand a little bit about what this star, fixed star, is. Now, this fixed star sits at around 25 degrees of Taurus. It's a fixed star. It moves very, very, very slowly in our tropical skies. Algol is the wild, raw, frightening face of the outraged feminine, which has been labeled as demonic or simply evil. This star seems to contain immense female passion and power. It is the power of the feminine, or the potential power of Mother Nature, not to be called evil for being strong. The power itself is not evil, but when it expressed itself in the bombings of Japan, we saw the destructive power of Algol. John F. Kennedy had Mars culminating with Algol on his chart and was killed by an assassin. Interesting thing is that Donald Trump, when Mars, Uranus, Algol was on his midheaven, that was July 15th on I think the day before it, or maybe that day, there was an attempt on his life. So we can see how, especially with something like malefic, like Mars, it can definitely bring out the more violent or evil aspect of this star. But it doesn't have to be that way. It can also just be passion and intensity that may end up devouring us with anger or rage. When the moon is sitting here, it may feel like that on an internal level. Now, I do want to just have a quick side note that this Moon Uranus Algol conjunction is happening on Donald Trump's midheaven exactly. His midheaven's at 24 degrees. So in a lot of ways, this might play out publicly as something happening to him, or some sort of realization that he has internally that creates him to make some sort of announcement or some sort of secret that comes out, because Scorpio is indicated, the sun in Scorpio is indicated here. There's so many ways for it to play out, and with Uranus in the mix especially, we just don't know, because it can happen out of nowhere and it can be big or it could be small. I mean, realistically, it could be something that internally changes in him that takes time for us to see, because it's the moon. It's his inner life, and he was born on a full moon. He was born on an eclipse. So he's familiar with these energies. So maybe it won't impact him as much and make him come out with something, but it could also indicate something happening to him, and also, or something happening to him or from him. So we kind of already talked about this moon conjunct Uranus Algol situation. Algol generally doesn't have an effect on us personally unless we have it indicated in our own birth chart strongly. Once again, as we read, like, it's often called an evil or malefic, violent star, and it can work like that, but it doesn't have to in everybody's chart. It can just be intense passion about something. And once again, this female, feminine power that is often said to be evil because it's chaotic, because feminine energy is chaos. And so much of our world as a patriarchy has deemed feminine power to be evil because it's chaotic. And masculine power is ordered and structured. And so we know what to expect. And while there is meaning in that too, right? It's not feminine versus masculine, like it's not a fight, but we also need both. Okay, so Saturn's going direct in Pisces. I made a whole video about that, but I think that's going to be allowing us to pursue our visions and making them real in our lives, but maybe not the way that we thought it would, right? So during Saturn retrograde, there is this sense of a fog is kind of covering certain aspects of our lives, and we're being dealt limitations and blockages and disappointment, and we feel like we can't move forward. And then once Saturn goes direct, slowly, as I mentioned in that video, there's some time frames to look out for, but slowly we'll start seeing that either the path opens or we start seeing the new ones as the fog lifts. Neptune is going to be sextiling the moon. Pluto is going to be trining the moon. And so they're giving this subtle support for evolution and transformation. Now, this is the last full moon that we will have with Pluto in Capricorn. Pluto aspecting this moon is giving us this like final push for transformation. It's so powerful and amazing, and I am just so deeply grateful for Pluto's work in our charts as it transits through different parts of our charts. It is truly amazing. Then we also have Mercury forming a T-square with Saturn and Jupiter. Hey guys, this is Future Jazz just popping in to say that this also is going to be a foreshadowing for the second Jupiter-Saturn square that we're having in December of 2024. So we're going to look back on this and think about what thoughts were we having during this time? What communications were we having during this time that are going to lead us to make our visions a reality? Now, this to me could kind of indicate this idea that we are wanting to be expansive, and yet Saturn squaring this is like, how are we going to be realistic? And I see this kind of indicated also in the Venus and Capricorn squaring the nodes, which is, I think, probably the most prominent. Obviously, the moon conjunct Uranus is probably the most prominent. But then we've got the ruler of the moon, Venus, squaring the north and south node in Aries and Libra. And the south node is also ruled by Venus. So a lot of Venusian themes. We've been having a lot of Venusian themes. I mean, that's the north node in Aries, south node in Libra. But every time we have a planet bending the nodes or squaring the nodes, there's one node that is more prominent in helping us kind of get to our evolutionary purpose, because the nodes are, people often think like, okay, because there's a duality there, right? Aries and Libra. And so people think north node is in Aries, south node is in Libra. It means pursue independence, let go of relationships, and screw how we relate to other people. Independence at all costs, asserting our will, screw other people, everyone's a narcissist, everybody sucks because they're not letting me have my way. I've been seeing that a lot. Some aspects there is truth to that, right? Like there are people who are not nice people and not good people to be with. But a lot of times it's more subtle than that. And so the south node in Libra versus the north node in Aries is saying, how can I assert my free will? How can I assert my independence and do things the way I want to without pushing every single person in my life away or demonizing them? And instead finding ways of relating to other people, which is more healthy, so that I'm able to be in relationships in which I can assert my independence and still be able to relate to another being and still keep people in my life who care about me and who are doing their best to, take care of their own issues as well. And so it's not so fatalistic, right? It's not so dual-minded as we'd like it to be. The north node pushes us towards growth by embracing, by grasping and expanding the north node signs, so Aryan qualities, and by releasing and letting go of and constricting the south node, so Libra qualities. So like I said, it's about refining how we relate to other people by moving towards our own independence. Wow, my hand looks really big when I do this. And now we've got Venus squaring this in Capricorn. And Venus in Capricorn is very discerning. Venus in Capricorn is slow moving, but it's aiming to achieve its goal. Venus in Capricorn can be critical. It's not the most fun place for Venus to be, but it values work and it values commitment and alignment. Saturn is so much about pursuing alignment for our souls and how we bring that into our real life, sometimes through pain, suffering, disappointment, yes. But when we see the purpose of what that pain, suffering, disappointment is here to do, which is align our soul with how we are acting in the world, then we don't demonize Saturn, right? It's all about understanding where everything is coming from and why it is the way that it is. So Venus in Capricorn is like, hold your horses. We are moving slowly towards our values, Venus, right? Oh, yes, this is what I want to say. In this specific nodal square, the South Node is taking precedence. And we don't only just see this in the astrology, but we also see it in the human design. Meaning that it's not so much about grasping for independence right now, but rather looking at our patterns of relating to other people and our relationships and our values, right? Venus isn't just relationships, it is our values, but seeing the patterns underneath this and saying what patterns are no longer working and releasing those patterns and then working slowly, diligently toward the new ones. Moon Uranus can sometimes make us want to make a decision impulsively, right? It's emotional impulsivity. I think that it's not going to, for a lot of people, they're going to recognize that this new vision that they have, this new idea, this new download, this new feeling of liberation through changing their lives in some tangible way needs time. So let's talk a little bit about the human design, because the human design is really, really very similar to the astrology chart. So during this time, the sun is in gate 43 and the moon is in gate 23. This creates a channel from the ajna to the throat called the channel of structuring. A lot of people actually have this because of the way the channel is set up. A lot of people have this channel and I myself have it. So I can speak from a personal experience of what this channel means. And I'm not going to go too much into it because I could talk forever. I have 7 gates on my throat. So talking is a thing for me. I also have the other 2 channels. So there's 3 channels that go from the ajna to the throat. I have all 3 of them. And so they all have a different flavor. And this one is very individual and it's very chaotic. And the way that this can manifest is that the ajna is kind of like the third eye. If you compare it to the 7 chakra system, the human design system is a 9 chakra system. But if you compare it to the traditional 7 chakra system, it's kind of like the third eye. And so we get downloads here from an unknown source, from the divine, that are not based in facts. They are a knowing, right? When we think about the third eye, it's like we see beyond the facts. We see beyond these things. So what happens when this is activated is a lot of times we'll have an understanding, we'll have some sort of a knowing, and it feels very chaotic internally, and we don't really know how to bring it to form. And what this channel requires, the channel of structuring, is time and patience and practice. And a lot of it is because it connects to the throat, is practice speaking it, right? So people who have ajna to the throat, especially channel of structuring, have to say things in a lot of different ways in order to hear themselves say it. And how does that actually come out to other people? Because this is also called the channel of freak to genius. So to some people, you may sound like a freak. To other people, you sound like a genius because it's very future oriented. And what can happen is if you don't say things the correct way, more people will think you're a freak. So it's really about how do I express this thing that's inside of me? And this requires, like I said, time, patience, and working on it. Practice. How do I say this? How do I make sense of what's happening inside of me? But the way that we experience it can sometimes be melancholic and it can be chaotic and disruptive. So kind of like that moon conjunct Uranus algol situation that we were talking about. So for a lot of us, we may get this insight, right? This shocking wave to our system. And yet Venus, which is squaring the South Node, right, and the North Node, is in gate 58 in the root, and the South Node is in gate 18. So it's kind of uncommon that these two are connected while they're aspecting each other. And they're creating the channel of judgment, which is a logical channel, which says, what are the facts to back this up? And so once again, very antithetical to what we just talked about. I don't have facts. This is just something I know. So how I could see this coming up for a lot of people is that you have an understanding of what your own values are in this life and what you need to actually be moving toward and what you want to actually be doing. And let's just bring the tarot into this, because these are the tarot cards I got. You've been burdened with living a life and aligning with values that are extrinsic. They're not yours. They're what society, your family, your friends gave you. And you've been carrying this for a really long time. And then this moon Uranus comes in and it gives you a new idea, or shakes you awake to something that maybe has been in the back of your subconscious for a long time, and now it's pushing it to the forefront. We need change in the Taurus part of our chart. But to everyone outside of you, this may seem really sudden, it may seem really crazy, and they may not understand it. And the channel of structuring requires a lot of courage to put something out there that you know you can't back up with facts. It's simply annoying. And so you might be ridiculed. People might think you're a freak. People might say, she doesn't know what she's doing. And you have to trust in yourself so much that you can, that channel is a deaf channel, meaning that these people who have this channel tend to be kind of deaf in that they don't listen to other people. And the reason for that is because they are meant to trust their own knowing, trust that voice that comes through. That Venus South Node might come up in a way that is like, what is happening? What are the facts behind this? And you may have to recognize that you can't back it up and you have to trust yourself. The other way that this could be showing up is that this channel of judgment touches on clearing out old patterns that no longer work. So exactly what I was saying about letting go the Libra-like things that are no longer working for us. People pleasing, abandoning ourselves for others, those kind of go together, right? Codependency. These are the shadows of Libra. And we are being asked to look at our lives and see in what areas of my life am I doing this? It might be in relationships, yes, but sometimes we abandon ourselves for a job, for a parent, for a boss, for our family. And we, our own family, like our wife, husband, children, and we think that we're a martyr. And we believe that this martyrdom, because society tells us this martyrdom is amazing. Yes, wow, you're such a good, generous person. But the only way you can truly love other people and truly help other people is if you love and help yourself. It's so cliche, but it's so true. There's a reason why it's a cliche, right? This energy, this logical energy, is good for clearing out old patterns that no longer work because it is refining, it is critical, and it is very discerning. So similar to the Venus and Capricorn energy. So see how these human design and astrology is just overlapping a lot here. So in the beginning of this video, I asked, are you living your life in alignment with your deepest values? And that's going to color your experience with this transit. In all reality, I truly believe for everybody this is very positive, because even though it may feel disruptive, chaotic, difficult, electrifying, and there may be some sort of breakdown before the breakthrough, I do believe that many of us are working within outdated or extrinsic values. And look to your Taurus house. Also look to the house you have Capricorn, because they're kind of working together right now, those parts of your chart. And I'm going to do an all signs video that goes deeper into this so you can kind of get an idea of, number one, what area of your life is culminating right now since May of 2024. And also in what area of my life am I needing to align with my values better? And how can I work toward that right now? Once again, what in your life is no longer working for you or no longer in alignment with your deepest intrinsic values? And what steps can you take toward moving in a different direction? Can you start today? I think a lot of us have to do some work to figure out what those intrinsic values are, yes. But I also feel like a lot of us know, but are too afraid to step into it, which I totally get. This lunation is asking us to start slow, to start small, and to remain committed. One last thing for everybody. I decided to pull some Rumi Oracle cards. And the card I got was this one, which is one of my favorites. It's the first card, number 1. So a beginning. And it's Beyond Death Life. As I was going through the guidebook that comes with it, I noticed that the last time I must have left a card. So in the guidebook. So I of course included it because I could have picked this one, right? If it was in the deck. Entering the Garden of Delights. Right? Yeah. But this one's 28, which is my life path number. But it reduces down to 1, right? 2 plus 8 equals 10. 1 plus 0 equal 1. So we got 2 1 cards. This is the beginning of something new, which is so interesting because it's a full moon and we often think like, oh, it's a culmination, it's an ending, releasing, yes. But in that ending, there is a new sense of you that is birthing. So for those of you who want to stick around, I want to read some of what the guidebook says about Beyond Death Life. And then for this one, I'm going to actually put the poem that's associated with it, the Rumi poem, in the description box so you can read that as well and have your own insights. But this one really felt like it was affirming everything that I've talked about. And it's just so beautiful, right? Because it's Rumi. The poem that's associated with this card is this. Footprints lead to the shore of the sea. Beyond that point, no choice remains. I am calling to you. Can you hear me? Listen. Within your heart, there I speak. My voice rings true. You are urged beyond what has been. The time has come. Lay it to rest now. This ending comes as grace to free you from all that you have known. For what you have known is now too small for your soul. Bear your uncertainty with equanimity. I am certain enough for both of us. Allow me to show you the light that you are, that burns within you. I will unveil you to yourself. Undressing your ego, casting aside its layers, as tender as a lover, with unwavering attention upon the sacred body of light. You shall know yourself in truth. This feels like that portion is Uranus talking to us, right? Now, this is Alana Fairchild's portion of it. Well, that was also her portion, but that was her speaking as Rumi. So here you are, an old soul at the edge of something you have known, at the cusp of an ending and a beginning. Perhaps you are already in surrender and falling in, or perhaps you are fearful and resisting as you greet your unknown destiny. Yet this moment is happening because your own divine soul has chosen for it to be this way. There is no punishment in this ending, nor is there anything to fear. There may be pain, there may be grief and loss, there may be uncertainty and even insecurity, yet you have a heart big enough to bear such growing pains. Your heart is even big enough to receive the joy that is lying in wait for you as you stumble across her in the course of your clumsy, inspired travails into this new life. Yes, you shall know the truth, the knowledge that the divine is with you, guiding every unfolding moment of your life journey. No matter how dark it may first appear, the divine is with you in unflinching curiosity, with compassion, and with fierce passion for your blossoming into all that you are, all that you can be. So what must you do to receive this divine grace, this new life? You must be willing to face death. Your death may be a choice, to let go, to take a step in a new direction, to move house, to end a relationship, to change career, or to step away from a religious or philosophical tradition, or a group, or a teacher. Your death may not feel as though it has come by choice at all. It may be sickness that leaves you feeling helpless, a relationship or other life circumstance changing when you wish with all your heart that it would not. Your transition through this death may be triggered by an inner feeling that you cannot quite pin down. Nonetheless, it powerfully propels you away from what has been and towards untapped possibilities, perhaps even towards great confusion as you encounter life in a new way, feeling even somewhat unprepared and uncertain as to what may lie ahead of you now. You are a blazing, beautiful soul, having a human experience that defies explanation and opens you up to divinity. This is what is happening in your life now. Whether the death is obvious and painful to you, or whether you are uncertain as to how it is yet showing up in your life. Either way, there is an ending imminent and a new life coming to you, with greater opportunity for your radiant soul to shine its beauty in the world. Grasp it eagerly, beloved. Now is not the time for fear or hesitation. Focus on what is becoming, whilst honoring what is no longer to be. I have nothing to say after that. Thank you guys if you made it this far. It truly means so much to me that you listen, and I know in this day and age it is difficult to find something that grasps our attention for longer than a minute or two. So really, really grateful for you. And I will see you guys in the next video when I do the all signs for this full moon. Have a beautiful day.